The current political landscape in Britain is riddled with chaos, much of it stemming from the promises and actions, or lack thereof, of the Labour Party under Keir Starmer's leadership. The root of the issue lies not with the voters, but with the party itself, which rose to power on a foundation of promises that many now view as deceptive. In this analysis, we will uncover the stark inconsistencies, unfulfilled pledges, and actions that have left the public questioning whether Keir Starmer and the Labour Party are truly fit to lead. The facade of change that voters were promised appears to be crumbling, exposing a leadership plagued with indecision and a growing disconnect from the people it aims to represent. Keir Starmer's leadership began with grand promises and an air of hope for a better, more united Labour Party. Yet, his inability to follow through on key commitments has painted a troubling picture. In public statements, Starmer praised Jeremy Corbyn, even describing him as a potential great prime minister. These words, however, have since been overshadowed by Starmer's evasive responses when confronted about them. The contradictions between his past endorsements and current denials reveal a lack of transparency, leaving voters to question the sincerity of his convictions. The Labour Party's frequent shifts in stance on significant policies further exacerbate this uncertainty, making it difficult for the public to trust the party's direction. Starmer's ambiguity is perhaps most evident in his approach to policy matters. For instance, during his leadership campaign, he assured voters of his support for freedom of movement. However, his later remarks confirm that freedom of movement was no longer on the table. These conflicting statements reveal not only a lack of clarity, but also a troubling inconsistency in his leadership style. In addressing critical issues like immigration, Starmer has failed to present a coherent vision, often leaving the public and his party in a state of confusion. Such indecision only serves to weaken his position and undermine the credibility of the Labour Party as a whole. The Labour Party's handling of the energy crisis is another glaring example of its inability to deliver on its promises. Starmer had repeatedly emphasized that a Labour government would freeze energy bills, claiming to have a fully costed plan in place to protect households from soaring costs. Yet, as energy bills continued to rise, these promises proved hollow. Instead of offering tangible solutions, the party resorted to blaming previous Conservative governments for the crisis. While there is some truth to these claims, Starmer's inability to present a clear and effective strategy of his own reflects poorly on his leadership. The energy price cap increase has become a symbol of Labour's failure to provide meaningful relief to struggling households. One of the most telling moments of disconnect came during a direct interaction between Starmer and Ella, a concerned citizen from Sunderland. Ella, a single parent grappling with rising energy bills, shared her struggles and asked what Labour would do to support people like her. Starmer's response lacked substance and professionalism, offering little reassurance to someone facing genuine hardship. This moment not only highlighted the Labour Party's failure to connect with the everyday struggles of ordinary people, but also underscored the growing disillusionment with Starmer's leadership. The Labour Party's inconsistencies extend beyond policy matters. Starmer's stance on key issues, such as his support for nationalising utilities, has shifted significantly. At one point, he firmly committed to nationalising water, energy, rail, and the Royal Mail. However, when pressed on whether these commitments would be included in the next election manifesto, his responses became increasingly vague. He outright denied plans to nationalise the Big Six energy companies, a stark departure from his earlier promises. Such reversals leave voters wondering where Labour truly stands and whether its leader can be trusted to follow through on his commitments. The erosion of trust in Starmer's leadership has not gone unnoticed. Within the Labour Party, dissatisfaction is growing as members and supporters become increasingly frustrated with the lack of direction and transparency. Starmer's evasive responses to questions about his past endorsements and his unwillingness to take definitive stances on pressing issues only serve to deepen this discontent. When a leader is not forthcoming about their decisions or vision, it breeds mistrust not only among voters, but also within the ranks of their own party. Starmer's handling of the media has also raised eyebrows. His contradictory positions on engaging with certain outlets, such as The Sun, have drawn criticism. At one point, he refused to give interviews to the publication, citing its controversial reputation. Yet, he later authored an article for the same newspaper, prompting questions about his consistency and integrity. This inconsistency is emblematic of a broader pattern in Starmer's leadership, where actions often fail to align with words. Another area where Starmer's leadership has come under scrutiny is his approach to strikes and labor disputes. While he has publicly supported workers on strike in some instances, he has also stated that a government should not be seen on picket lines but should instead work to resolve disputes. This contradictory stance creates confusion and weakens labor's position as a party that traditionally champions the rights of workers. It also raises questions about whether Starmer truly understands the struggles faced by those he claims to represent. The Labour Party's internal divisions and lack of cohesion further illustrate the challenges facing Starmer's leadership. His reluctance to take a firm stance on controversial issues, such as the decision to strip Shamima Begum of her British citizenship, has only added to the perception of indecisiveness. In one instance, he criticized the decision as rushed, yet later described a court ruling upholding the decision as correct. Such flip-flopping on sensitive issues undermines his credibility and leaves voters questioning his judgment. The consequences of these leadership failures extend beyond Starmer himself. The Labour Party's ability to present a unified and effective opposition to the Conservative government is severely hampered by its internal discord and lack of clear direction. Without significant changes, the party risks alienating its base and losing public trust. For Labour to regain its footing, it must address these underlying issues with urgency and clarity. As Starmer's leadership continues to come under fire, the implications for the Labour Party's future are profound. The frequent shifts in positions, lack of transparency, and inability to connect with voters on key issues suggest a leadership that is increasingly out of touch with the realities faced by ordinary people. This disconnect not only weakens the party's ability to present a coherent platform, but also erodes the trust and support of its base. For Starmer and the Labour Party to move forward, they must confront these challenges head-on. This means taking decisive action to address the energy crisis, presenting a clear and consistent vision for the future, and rebuilding trust with voters. It also requires a willingness to engage openly and honestly with the public, acknowledging past mistakes and demonstrating a genuine commitment to change. The stakes for Labour have never been higher. As dissatisfaction with Starmer's leadership grows, so too does the risk of internal discord and diminishing public support. Without significant changes, the party's ability to provide a credible alternative to the Conservative government will be severely undermined. The road ahead will be challenging, but for Labour to regain its standing in British politics, it must rise to the occasion and address these issues with the urgency and clarity they demand. In the end, the future of the Labour Party and its role in British politics will depend on its ability to confront these challenges and chart a new course. For Starmer, this means taking a hard look at his leadership style and making the necessary changes to inspire confidence and trust. Only by doing so can Labour hope to rebuild its credibility and provide the leadership that Britain so desperately needs. The current state of British politics is fraught with challenges, and much of the blame is being directed at the leadership of Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. The promises made to voters appear to have fallen flat, leaving the public disillusioned and frustrated. This is not the fault of the voters who believed in the pledges presented to them, but rather the result of Labour's inability to deliver on its commitments. Starmer's leadership is now under scrutiny, with many questioning his capacity to lead the country effectively. His failure to fulfill key promises, coupled with frequent shifts in stance, has created an air of uncertainty that undermines his position as a credible alternative to the current government. Under Starmer, the Labour Party has failed to present a consistent and compelling vision for the future. For instance, his earlier commitments to freedom of movement and progressive immigration policies have been walked back, leaving many of his supporters feeling betrayed. This reversal is not just a matter of policy, but a question of trust. The electorate expects their leaders to stand firm on their principles, and when those principles appear to change with political convenience, it damages the credibility of the entire party. One glaring example of this inconsistency is Starmer's approach to energy policy.